but it runs. Welcome back to the channel, guys. We are working on the carburetors. This is a triple carburetor setup, one carburetor per cylinder, and I did my research on what the low side jet measurements should be. We found the mag end and the PTO end and made sure we were adjusting the right jet. Each jet is about 3 half turns, and the last jet on the far left side is about 2 half turns and a quarter turn. Once the jets had been adjusted and the lines were cleaned, we installed the carburetors, but you'll see later on how I should have rebuilt these suckers from the beginning. All the vacuum lines were installed on the carburetors to begin with, then the bolts were cleaned up on the engine using anti-seize on the studs and slipping those vacuum lines back in position on the engine crankcase. Making sure to run the electrical wires behind the carburetor where they're supposed to go to that electrical box inside of the engine bay. Then tightening down all of the 12mm nuts that hold the carburetors onto that intake runner plate. Well, now it is time to put this engine back in the jet boat. We have the lower intake piece all bolted up, tons of 10mm bolts for that. Then we got the carburetors on with a bunch of grease all on the movable components. Plus, we lined up our oil pump perfect. Let me show you. So at wide open throttle, check out the lines on our oil pump. They match up perfectly. And then I closed the oil pump all the way. These lines match up perfectly. It is a cool way of doing things with the oil pump, but I've just never seen it before. And I understand why it doesn't work very well. We have the cush drive in the jet drive coupler, which is pretty beefy, honestly. Starter's bolted in. The exhaust side is all clean, ready for a fresh gasket and the exhaust to go back on once this is back in the boat, since this is pretty heavy, and me and the little bro are gonna try to lift this thing and put it back in there. I swapped out the tiny little crusty zip ties for larger zip ties on all of these connections. No idea what this line runs to. It just runs to an empty bolt. But anyway, our main concern is getting that engine back into this boat, and it's just gonna be me and the little bro, so we'll see how this goes. And he actually just left for baseball, so we're gonna do some quick upkeep things on the inside of this interior. We're gonna need a little bit of Loctite. Let's get up in here, and we're gonna need a screwdriver and a little tool pick. So you can see these handles are pretty loose. The fronts as well. We're just gonna pop off this cover, access to the screw in there. We're gonna use some Loctite and tighten all these down, get these handles nice and firm. So we were about to put the engine in and the little bro had an idea. I should probably do the oil injection lines on the other engine first before we get this other engine installed. So I've got my high pressure oil injection lines, 1/8 inner diameter, 1/4 outer diameter. And we're going to replace the oil injection lines, which you can see right there running to the back of the oil pump, with these.
You could hide someone in here.
This is not a smuggler boat. We got the engine in. Now to put it together. Genuinely, the hardest part about this whole installation was leaning over to install everything. That was the hardest part, since everything was basically below your feet and you had to lean over to do everything. There's 8 engine bolts that we installed. Then we reversed our removal process by installing the electricals first, getting all the connections behind the CDU box, and then bolting that watertight seal cover back in place, making sure we had connected all the grounds as well inside that cover. All of the coil packs have a separate ground that connects behind that box. Then installing the positive and negative terminals on the starter, since that sits below the exhaust and you can't access that once the exhaust is installed. Speaking of the exhaust, we have fresh gaskets for the whole exhaust system, but first we need to clean all the surfaces with that wire wheel, making sure there's a nice flat clean surface for all of the gaskets. And these gaskets are probably 26 years old anyway, so it's needed for them to be replaced at this point. From my understanding, water runs inside of the exhaust manifold and the engine and cools down the engine and the exhaust metal, keeping everything nice and cool while you're running this 2-stroke, because there is no such thing as a radiator or coolant on this 2-stroke 3-cylinder Yamaha engine. forgot the alignment pins on the old engine, so I had to pull those out and tap them in quickly onto the used engine, and then we were able to fit the exhaust side manifold back into place with anti-seize on every single bolt. Once again, the most difficult part was simply leaning over to install everything. Most likely why most shops have a crane system and they build the engine outside of the boat before they install it. Well, the little bro is about to vacuum on top of the exhaust and in the airbox before we close that up. But we've installed our throttle cables all the way back here. I'm sorry for the poor angles, there's just no room. Got the return fuel and the intake fuel line hooked up to the fuel rail down there. We've got our oil injection lines coming off of the airbox. They come in right in those holes on the side of the airbox is where the oil flows in the carburetor. Ground wire attached to this 10mm up here. Both sides. And underneath these caps are Zerk fittings to grease the rear bearing and the front bearing for the jet drive. We've got one more gasket to install on the back side of this exhaust. We have to install the water line coming in the bottom of the exhaust. Definitely a lot of things that are hard to see on camera. Now, something pretty cool with these oil injection lines, as you saw, we replaced the ones on this right side engine, and actually, check this out. Oil has started to flow in them, and you can see where the line is dark is where oil is starting to flow up and into the intake, and we haven't even started the engine, so that means we have a good seal on the airbox. And how that oil is already starting to flow up is just by me simply opening and closing the throttle, which in turn opens the oil injection pump on the backside. Now little bro's gonna vacuum, and we're gonna continue assembling the exhaust and the air intake. Now that the engine bay is all clean, thanks to the little bro's vacuuming skills, we got the exhaust ready to be installed in this engine bay. We cleaned up the gaskets on both sides and then slipped this horseshoe exhaust in place. It also has water jackets running through it to help cool it down while it's running on the water. The bro also popped out the used spark plugs to throw them in our used engine because the old spark plugs were pretty nasty. Then we got ready to install the coil packs, cleaned those up, and put those all into place. It's nice you can't mess these up because they're all different sizes. Now, we need to put oil in the oil tank, and the way we bled it was just moving the throttles up and down, which allowed a lot of air bubbles to come out of the oil tank, as you can see. And now it's time for gas. We went to the local gas station, grabbed some 91, and also pre-mixed it with oil. Shook that all around and tossed that in the boat, ready for our very first startup. All right, now's the time. Put the keys in. These are the tiniest keys as well. We have everything connected. Just put a premix in the gas tank for the fresh engine start because the oil lines are not primed at all. We connected the battery. We'll put both of these keys in, on and on, on. Just started raining. Light on for fuel. I have no idea what that means. Let's turn on the fuel for the right and the left engine. Both of those are on. See if we can figure out the radio system real quick. Is that on over there? Well, we got the radios to work. All right, enough with the radio. Throttle here, chokes here. All right, we'll start with the right engine. Start. Nothing. I think the battery's shot. It's not turning over the starter. It says green, but it's not turning over. So we tried to start those, nothing's happening. We think we need a jump pack. So we're gonna put that on the battery, even though the battery says it's green and good. We'll see if that fixes anything. Jump pack on. Let's give her a crank.
Is it shutting off?
Okay, the right side is firing well. Try the left side. We might need fuel. Let's pull the choke on the left side and try that real quick. Do I need to have these open? It's not firing. Left side.
Put one open.
Fuel level just might be too low. He's gonna put more fuel in because we just might be super low on gas.
Can we let it sit on nothing?
A little bit less. All our jump packs are charging right now, but we got both of the engines to crank. Now we just need them to fire up. We got another jump pack. We'll do the right engine. The left side. So what could we be doing wrong? Plenty of oil in the oil tank as well. We need to see if we're gonna get sparked. So we tested, and this does spark once, but then it stops sparking. I don't know if I have it on a good ground or not, but it only sparks once. Well, we have the right side carbs disassembled and off the engine. It wasn't too bad getting these ones off because there's so much room to access those 6 studs. I'm just worried about that side. I don't know if I'll be able to get those off without having to slide over the engine. Right now, we're disassembling both sides of the carburetor, and I have absolutely no idea what I'm looking at. But I'm just taking out all the seals, all the diaphragms, I think. think this is a diaphragm as well. A buddy of mine has a ultrasonic cleaner, so I'm gonna take this carb off of the fuel lines down there, and hopefully we'll be able to just toss this in the ultrasonic cleaner. I have a carb rebuild kit on the way. We'll install it, and hopefully it should be good to go. We just gotta rinse and repeat with the rest of these. Now, I did not have the carb rebuild kits yet in the mail, so we just disassembled these to clean them and throw them back on the engine to see if that would fix our issue. You guys are not going to believe what the fix was later in the video. It is so ridiculous. We reinstalled the choke and the throttle cables and the base plate, putting the carb assembly back together and then getting it ready to throw back on the engine to see if this would make any difference. Fully charged. So it was trying to start, got water out the exhaust with the ultrasonic cleaned carbs in. This one was firing over every time, but it would not keep running. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong, but we're gonna try tomorrow and see if we can get better results. Got the jump pack on the battery. We've got our new spark plugs in with the cleaned out carburetors. Not rebuilt, but just cleaned out. Now we're gonna see if we can get one of the engines to turn over. I'm gonna leave the spark plug out and see if it sparks while we turn it over.
Nothing.
So it sparked.
Screw that in and let's see what happened. Could be out of spark.
So the carbs are back off again, and here's where we're at. First of all, we weren't getting it to fire. We weren't getting either engine to turn over at all. So then I quickly cleaned out the carbs on the right side. We have it firing upon first startup, which is what this water is coming out the exhaust. It fires up maybe once or twice and then stops running, which is better than before when we had nothing. So now we're gonna take these carburetors apart again, and I have a rebuild kit showing up in the mail today. So we're gonna rebuild all the insides of these, then put them back in with the brand new plugs, and hopefully a different result will come. We used this ultrasonic cleaner on the carbs earlier, and we'll use it again. Really nice. You can set the temperature of the ultrasonic fluid and how long you want it in there for. And hopefully we can get these engines running today. While we have the carburetors cleaning in the ultrasonic fluid and we're waiting on our carb rebuild kit, we have another box for the trailer. We're gonna open it up and install it and show you guys what we got. Well, we just got our Mikuni carb rebuild kits in the mail right as we finished putting on these posts on the side of the trailer. These posts are to help me see when pulling the boat onto the trailer where the trailer is located underneath the water. Also, for someone to reach out and help me center the boat in the middle of the trailer when we do load this thing. Man, now I am super excited to open up these carb rebuild kits and put my carbs back together. I got high hopes that this will hopefully fix my issue. That small piece we're installing right now is the fuel filter for the low side jet. When fuel comes in, it goes through that filter and then it goes into the carburetor. Basically, rebuilding these carbs is really easy. You're just replacing all the components that you see inside. You don't need any special tools, just a simple pick and screwdriver will get the whole job done. There's O-rings, plastic seals, and rubber diaphragms that you're replacing. I also lubed and replaced the O-ring for the low side jet. And now onto the second carb in the line. Again, breaking out a brand new kit because one kit only has enough seals and gaskets for one carb. And these carb kits are about $60 a piece. So they are very expensive. Now inside the carb, there's a lot of plastic components that over time can get creased or dimpled, resulting in starving the carb of fuel. So you have to replace these whenever you can see a dimple or crease. Well. Good morning, guys. I think we solved our issue. Last night, we just could not get this thing to spark correctly on any of these plugs. I was confused why that was. So a quick prayer and a lot of Googling last night, and this is gonna sound crazy. Right here, along with what the previous owner gave me, is a lanyard for a kill switch. Well, this piece goes directly on the side of the ignition. And if this black piece were to pull out from that knob on the side of the ignition, pretty sure it would cut spark to the engine. So that is our issue on why this boat is not running. because it only sparks once and then it doesn't spark again, which is very strange. So I feel so dumb, but this is our fix. I'm 99% sure. We rebuilt all of the right side engine carburetors, so we're gonna put these back together, get it back on the base plate, get it back on the engine with the throttle connections attached to the throttle bodies and the choke carbs on top as well. Man, I feel so dumb. So we have just put together the right side engine. We got the carburetors, the throttle cables, the oil injection lines, the velocity stacks. Everything is connected. The fuel rail, so there's a fuel rail coming in the other side. That's the intake, and this is the excess fuel. And speaking of fuel, we have our fuel on. We got a jump pack. Turn it to on. Now the way this lanyard works is it pushes out this black piece. So this must be what needs to be engaged for those spark plugs to fire. Battery is connected up, key is on, moment of truth.
Ears, bro, and this thing is so smoky, bro.
But it runs. Man, what a relief. We have one running motor with freshly rebuilt carbs. It sounds fantastic, even though I have no idea what they sound like. We're gonna put the AIRBOX back on, get this motor all tidied up, then we're gonna try this right side. And I forgot, we should have checked if the tachometer is working. Let's try that. The battery button, let's see if the left side works. Okay, so the tachometer does not work, but we just want an engine to work. The right side works too. So far, the boat is awesome. Big thanks to little bro for the help. We got my friend Evan out here. It is smooth sailing, wouldn't you say?
Yes, sir.
Smooth sailing. Engines sound great. I know the right side carburetors could use some work because I only rebuilt the left, but they both are working all right. The only thing that's not working, the tachometers and the horn over there, but everything else seems to be, oh, and the fuel. But this was my issue. I didn't have this plugged in, and now everything works. Well, the boat is back in the yard. We're just inspecting everything after that fun little rip. This left engine ran perfectly, and there's no fluid underneath the engine. All of the oil injection lines are nice and dark, which means oil is running through them. Now, if we go to the left side, there's a lot of water underneath the engine. So we might have a leak down by the exhaust where the water comes in and cools the exhaust. So we've got some things to work on, and we also need to rebuild the carburetors on the right side, but that was a ton of fun.